Good evening to the honorable speakers, honorable moderator, and all the participants. We are going to start today's seminar titled Leather Facts with three most dignified and knowledgeable speakers, followed by panel discussion, moderation, and question answer session by our renowned member and very good academist, Dr. Buddhadev Chatterjee. We request all participants to keep yourself in off mode of sound and video throughout the program. During question and answer session, kindly raise your hand through chat or raise the questions through chat so that moderator can unmute you when required. The session will continue for approximately 1.5 hours. We request you to give a patient hearing and help us to complete the event smoothly and effectively. To start with, I request our Honorable President, Mr. Arnab Jha, to welcome the Honorable Speakers, Moderator, and the participants. Mr. Jha, please.
Good evening, Mr. Sushanta Mollik, General Secretary, ILTA, Mr. Shubir Dotto, Coordinator, Seminar Subcommittee, Dr. Dietrich Techtmeyer, Panelist Speaker, Mr. Safiq Ahmed, Panelist Speaker, Dr. K.G. Sriram, Panelist Speaker, Dr. Buddha Chattopadhyay, Moderator, members, colleagues, students, and all participants. I, on behalf of ILTA, welcome you all to join the webinar titled Leather Facts for information to public and to the advantage of the industry. Leather, this unique word, creates a special feeling and is delivered from natural origin as byproduct of the agriculture industry. For quite some years, non-leathers are used as substitute or alternate in different names like foam leather, synthetic leather, man-made leather, leatherite, ultra-suede, pure leather, etc. Interestingly, the impact comes from the word leather, and a lot of people get confused. And nowadays, sporadically, some negative propaganda has started damaging leather. During the curtain raising program of last ILTA Congress in India, in the hall Triple Helix in Chennai, during my deliberation, I suggested for introducing some special marks for leather, like hallmark for gold and silk mark for silkboard with global acceptance and with all probable legal bindings. In the same program, Mr. Safiq Ahmed, while presenting his celebration, endorsed my view. It is important to note that during the last IULTCS, IUE Environmental Commission meeting on 25th June 2019 in Dresden, Germany, Dr. K.G. Sriram placed and recorded a proposal to prepare a new draft documents on sustainability and best available practices. I would request to draw and finally for documentation on each segment, starting from food chain to decomposition of products, etc. Leather naturally is trying to push the image of leather for young people so that they choose leather. It has now become the observer member of IULTCS. The legal aspects of the use of word leather is to describe materials and labeling. The new ISO standard ISO 15115-2019 leather vocabulary now includes animal origin in definition of leather. Now the time has come. We have to establish from all possible corners that leather cannot be replaced or substituted. And for this, we all from leather fraternity have to join together in different forums and reach all people globally, because consumer is the last word for all commodity. Keeping all this in view, our seminar subcommittee headed by Mr. Shubir Datta along with sub-members have drawn this program, Leather Facts. Endeavor will be interesting to you all. And with this, I once again welcome you all. Thank you. Now I request Mr. Shubir Datta to take over the charge of the program ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Arnab Jha. for an appropriate introduction. And just as Mr. Jha said, that this had been an ongoing discussion between myself, my team, Mr. Rajesh, Mr. Mehdi, Mr. Asit Kanungo, and Mr. Arnab Jha. And we are discussing that how we can counter this negative propaganda of certain factions. And we felt that actual facts like what are the effects of carbon footprints or the global warming should be made aware of. And for this reason, this webinar was conceptualized. And today we have with us 3 expert speakers who are also passionate on this issue. First speaker is Dr. Dietrich Tegmayr. Dr. Tegmayr is Vice President, Industry Relations and Global Product Development Trusting Business of Business Unit Leather at Lanxess. He has also been the former President of ILTA. He will be deliberating on the leather vis-a-vis imitation and its ecological impact. Mr. Tegmayr, please.
Yeah, hello everybody. It's a great pleasure for me to talk to all of you. Last time I gave a presentation, it was at CLRI. Here you see in the back still some appreciations I got, and you see I have it in my room as a memory. And okay, in the Corona times, we have to look for other ways, and therefore I believe it's a good thing here to do this webinar. I was asked to talk about, I will share my screen now. I was asked to talk about a presentation which I put together recently and which I have given already a few times, and where I believe it is something everybody should know from the industry, also from our customers, and also from companies who are working with leather. Because as you already introduced, Mr. Jha, sustainability and leather, yeah, very often is mentioned in a way that it looks like it's a contradiction, yeah, and a lot of you know that this is not true, and why I would like to go through in my presentation why I believe it's not true. And for most of you may, I'm sure, one or the other topic, it's not new, but maybe the wording and some facts which I'm going to present are new, because we all have to pass on the message to consumers and to everywhere in the world. So, leather and sustainability, sorry, is it a contradiction? I will focus on 6 points where I believe the topic sustainability is playing an important role. First, it's a raw material origin, yeah, the collagen, and then secondly, it's the chemicals which are used, and third, it's the water consumption. Sorry, it will go away. The number 4 is the byproducts, and number 5, carbon footprint, as already mentioned in the beginning, and then also a big advantage leather has compared to other materials is the biodegradability. So these are for me the 6 most important items where where we need to see to make the leather making process really sustainable. Starting with the first, raw material origin. Collagen is made, it's a climate neutral material, and here this term climate neutral I really would like to ask everyone to remember, yeah, for all. This will become the buzzword in the next 5 to 10 years, at least in the automotive industry and fashion industry. Everyone wants to become, as soon as possible, climate neutral. And here, we in the leather industry, we have a huge advantage. Why? Because the hide, of course, comes from the cow or from a cattle. A cattle is 100% vegan. Yeah, it only eats grass. It has a it has a capability to turn grass into proteins. Yeah, and it's eating only grass. And the grass actually is only produced out of CO2, out of water and sunlight by photosynthesis. So if an hide after use somehow gets converted back or degraded back, biodegrades back, it gets turned into the same amount of CO2 as originally it was generated. So this is the circle, as you can see here, and the whole circle means it is carbon neutral, it's CO2 neutral. Yeah, and the natural law behind all of this is the conversion of mass. Everybody learns it in the first semester at the university. So each CO2 molecule which forms the grass gets eaten by the cow, converts into the hide, and gets back released into CO2 after biodegradation. It's the same amount as it was started. Excuse me, it will go back. This is very much different to synthetics. Yeah, synthetics are made out of oil. Yeah, and this oil is since millions of years in the earth. It's a carbon sink actually. Yeah, and this oil is converted into the organic chemistry where the synthetics are made of. And after incineration or after degradation, if the synthetics are not ending up in the ocean, which is even worse, yeah, they are converted into CO2 plus. That means this is additional CO2 in the atmosphere, and this is not carbon neutral. Actually, it's the opposite. And here, this is something I really would like to have everyone understood. And we have a huge advantage in the leather industry, yeah, because collagen is a carbon neutral raw material base. Yeah, and from this point of view, from a sustainability point of view, here we have a huge advantage, and we can mark it with a green dot. Let me come to the second topic, chemicals. Yeah. We all know chemicals are playing a very important role in the leather manufacturing. Yeah? Chemicals prepare and turn the hide into the durable material leather, which is called tanning. Chemicals are providing the leather the character by filling and softening and dyeing. Chemicals generate a value because we can increase the cutting yield due to smart chemistry in the finishing side. And very important for automotive applications, chemicals guarantee also the technical performance, abrasion, anti-soiling, cleanability, and so on. This is all done by chemicals. So you can say without chemicals, the leather industry can't work. Yeah, no chemicals, no leather. So, but there are different types of chemicals. If I think back 20 years ago, where our knowledge about poisonous, harmfulness was completely different to that what it was today. Yeah, the chemistry was very much different. So in the meantime, the chemical industry has more or less redesigned the portfolio, and we are trying to make them as natural as possible, as harmless as possible. So we use a lot of natural raw materials like enzymes, proteins, waxes, casein, starch, vegetable tannins, cellulose, lignin, zeolite, and so on, minerals. So all this is not part of the chemical portfolio in synthetics, yeah. And therefore, I believe here in the leather industry, we already do a very good job, yeah. And we have a very good portfolio available to every tanner, even in India, in Bangladesh, or wherever you are. And Those so-called good chemicals are listed in the Roadmap to Zero MRSL from ZDHC. You can download this in the internet. If you search by Google or something else, ZDHC leather, you will find it. And here all the chemical suppliers are listing their chemicals which are in line with modern standards of restrictions. And if a tanner is following those type of chemicals, and purchases from the according to this list, yeah, he can say he is on the safe side using the best portfolio of chemicals. So also chemicals for me, if the tanner is sourcing the right products, I think it's something the leather industry has solved with this whitelist for sustainable chemicals, because they are audited by ZDHC according to latest standards. The third big topic, which is very, very often put in wrong picture, is the water consumption. Because people believe leather is using a huge amount of water, because leather is produced in big drums, like in big washing machines. And I don't see this. This is not fair. Why? If you go in internet, for example, waterfootprint.org, yeah, that is a so-called scientific platform, an NGO, which gives for all types of products, a cup of coffee and meat and paper and whatever, the amount of water which is required to produce this product, yeah, which is a good thing. And if you look in this database, for 1 square meter of leather, or 1 kg of leather, it's round about 1 square meter, there it stands, 17,000 liter water is used to produce 1 square meter of leather. I mean, this is an astronomical amount of water, yeah? And is this fair? And I would say no. Maybe there is an algorithm which comes to this number, yeah. But if you really look behind, and that's our job in the leather industry, to communicate this to our brands and our customers and even to the consumers, this is nonsense, 17,000 liter. Why? A tannery only uses about 100, 200 liter of water per square meter. And this is less than 1% of these 17,000 liters, which are mentioned. 99% of these 17,000 liters is rainwater. Rainwater, which is required, as I mentioned before, in the photosynthesis to grow the grass. And I mean, this is going to happen, yeah, regardless if on this grass field there is a cow, and if the cow is converted into meat and leather and so on, the rainwater is falling, yeah. And so for me, this is not processed water, yeah. And that is something we have to make clear to everyone, yeah. The amount of processed water is between, as I said, 100 and 250 liter per square meter. And this is not bad. If you look, for example, for a denim jeans, yeah, the processed water to produce a denim jeans, yeah, is above 1,000 liter to my knowledge, yeah. So leather is actually 1/10 of this, and it's a good performance, yeah. And by the way, we are not using water, we are just, I always say, borrowing the water from the nature. Very often, a tannery works in a bypass to a river, yeah. So we take out some water, we use it for the leather process, and afterwards it has to be cleaned in a wastewater treatment plant and then released. And as you know, very often the cleaned water has a better quality than the incoming water, yeah. So we are not using water, we are just borrowing water for the process, and this is something completely different than what I understand as a use of water, where you really take water from the nature and you don't give it back. You understand? So from this point of view, these 17,000 liter and the massive use of water, it is something we really have to communicate. This is not the case. From my perspective, the water issue in the leather industry isn't an issue. We can minimize even the amount of water, which is good. Yeah, and we have to clean the water. The only issue the leather industry has with water is salt. Yeah, salt actually is the biggest issue, chemical issue from the leather industry. Think about simple salt, you know. And when you are not working at an ocean where the water anyhow has salt, you know, if you're working inland and you have to remove the water into a river, then I can imagine this could be an issue, but there you have to treat then the water with technologies also to separate the salt. And even this is possible. Yeah, so water can be managed, can be controlled, and therefore I also don't see a principal issue, a KO criteria for leather manufacturing in terms of sustainability. Coming to the next topic, which is also something we in the leather industry are not always addressing this right. And think about if a tanner is buying, let's say 10 tons of raw material, raw hides. Yeah. And if he sells leather, he only sells about 20 to 30% of the volume which he has purchased. Yeah? The rest are shavings, the rest are splits, the rest are lime leather and all this other stuff. Yeah. So 60 to 70% of the purchased material he's buying actually are byproducts. And if those byproducts get burned or going to waste, which is going to happen in the past and maybe still in many cases today, I really can't consider the leather manufacturing process as sustainable. Yeah, if you use only 20% of what you purchase and the rest is going to waste, to be honest, this is not a sustainable process. And therefore, the chemical industry, here, my industry, for example, Lanxess, or maybe you have heard in the near future, my new company, TFL, we in the chemical industry, we are working together with many, many tanners, and we are trying to provide them opportunities to even make value out of these byproducts. These byproducts are proteins. Protein is a natural, high valuable raw material. It's a shame to put these byproducts, turn it into waste. Yeah. And you can make in cosmetic application, you can use for fertilizer, you can use it for pet food, you can use it for many other applications. We are working currently on adhesives, we are working on flame retardants for the construction industry. There are so many potential applications for these byproducts. Yeah, this is called protein upcycling. And this is a must the leather industry needs to see. The tanner shouldn't look only on the portion of raw materials which he turns into leather. He needs to be a recycling industry for the entire proteins he is going to purchase. Yeah, this is a new thinking. Yeah, you can't switch from one day to another. But I can tell you, this is an extremely important aspect for the future. We will come into some kind of, we call it in science, a regenerative era. Yeah, the industry is moving into a regenerative era. That means the focus will be on circular economy. It will be on recycling. Yeah, and if we have a mass balance like here, that only 1/3 of the material we are purchasing, we are turning into leather, we are out of the game. So we need to find solutions, sustainable solutions for these byproducts. And here my company LANXESS and also many other companies in the leather industry, we try to work together that we in a partnership can come up with solutions together with the tanning industry. If this is going to happen, no problem. Yeah, we can make a green dot be for the byproduct as well. It's not a sustainability issue. Coming to the next topic, carbon footprint. Yeah, carbon footprint is a KPI which is used more and more for evaluating the efficiency, the energy efficiency of a process. And it's a good KPI. It's very good. Problem is, you need to find the right algorithm to calculate this KPI. And here I would like to give you two references. One is, by the way, you can have this presentation afterwards. Yeah, I will. If you send it out by PDF, it's not an issue for me at all. Sustainable benchmarking study of different materials, you will see. And I would like to show you the result of a pilot study we did in the European Union, together with the meat industry, by the way. Yeah. So, Jutta Knödlers, she's a chemical engineer, and she got a research fund to do this study from the German government. And she assessed different seed materials by leather, textile, artificial leather, and of course, genuine leather. And she made a so-called cradle-to-grave analysis. Yeah, she investigated all steps: the production of raw materials, the production of chemicals, which the tanner is buying, the transportation, then the manufacturing of the synthetic leather or the real leather, the wastewater treatment plan. She also took a certain amount of use, in this case of car, and she was looking for the final disposal. Here, this use is actually something you can keep in mind, which is for each material in the same way. As you can see here, it was 5% of a car, which is more or less the weight of the interior. And if you drive then a certain amount of kilometers per annum and a certain amount of years, then you can calculate roughly how much CO2 equivalent the use of this car leather is going to do, or the car seat material. Yeah. So you will see this later on here. Yeah. In the next slide, you see the assessment she did. Oops. And on the left is the PVC and PU, so artificial leather, coated leather. Yeah. And you see, if you, for each step, she evaluated how many how much CO2 equivalent it was generated, and then she summed up to total of 15.8 kg CO2 equivalents per square meter of artificial leather. Yeah. And as I said, if you only want to look for the fabrication of the material, you have to deduct these 8.1 kg, which comes from the use. Yeah, so we are in a range of 7 kg of CO2 equivalents per square meter artificial leather. If you look for cotton, or if you look for polyester nightwear, yeah, woven material, we come up to 18.8 for cotton and 20.6 CO2 equivalents per square meter woven polyester material. Yeah. It's a bit more, but it's, let's say, not completely out of the scale. And if you, even here, you have to deduct these 8.1 to come to the real process KPI. So how does it look like of leather compared to this alternative materials. Even here, we had the chemical production, we have the transportation of wet blue, we have the production of leather in the beam house, in the retanning and in the finishing. We have the wastewater treatment coordinated, again, the 8.1 kg for a life cycle. And because leather is carbon neutral, here we have not an addition, we have a negative impact if we convert it, if we thermal put it in an incineration, because we generate energy which we can use, which is a negative contribution, and we turn it to the same amount of CO2, as I mentioned in the beginning, as it was generated. It's carbon neutral, climate neutral. So then we come up, if we sum it up all, we come up to 7.2 kg, 17.2. So it's in the middle of cotton and PVC, yeah? And it's even better than polyester woven material, yeah? So it's actually good, yeah? So now comes the big question, the cattle farming, yeah? How is it contributing to the overall carbon footprint? And here, unfortunately, very, very different calculations and algorithms are out and are used. Therefore, you have to be very careful if you get a number for leather, how it is calculated. And actually, this is not an issue of leather. It is an issue of all natural-based materials like paper or also cotton, actually. Yeah, we do not know where to end the calculation and the allocation of how much of this pharma process gets allocated to leather. And that was a study the EU has done, and here you see the result. It's a 160 pages document, but actually this is the core of the document. If a cow, yeah, also generates milk and dairy, yeah, and cheese, where you can make cheese and something like this out. Yeah? This is more or less, and this is for several years. Then of a cow, when it gets slaughtered, around about 88% of the value is allocated to this milk industry, and only 12% is allocated to the body. And from the body, 96.5% of the weight is the meat, and only 3% is the hide. So if you have the 3%, if you have the 3% of a body, and this is only 12% of the cow. If you calculate this down, it's only 0.42% of the cow which has to be allocated to leather. Yeah, and this is a different algorithm as it is used in many, many other calculations, but I believe this is the right one. And if you then, as I mentioned before, 70% of the cow hide are byproducts. If you use them for something else, you can allocate out 70% of this carbon footprint to those products, and only 30% remains for genuine leather. And this is around about 1.4% of the original 100% of a cow. And if you do this, then you can come up to additional 3 kg out of the cattle farming industry allocated to leather. And if you add those up to 17.2, then you come to an overall carbon footprint of 20.2 kg CO2 equivalents per square meter leather. And this is in the same magnitude like the synthetic materials. And therefore, we can make even this point of view mark this with a green dot. So last but not least, one very, very important argument for leather compared to any other material is the biodegradability. We all know the issues we have in the ocean with synthetic fibers, yeah, that they do not get degraded, yeah, they are getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and then at some point of time they are ending up in the stomach of a fish, of a whale or whatever. And you will never ever find a piece of leather in a stomach of a whale, for example, because it's degraded before. Yeah, it will never be possible to have this directly in the ocean and as a material. So biodegradability is a huge advantage for leather. And I would like to show you how the science is looking to this topic, biodegradability. Actually, they are differentiating between bio-based origin and biodegradable materials. This is something different. Yeah, I will show you. And there you can have the biodegradability, yes or no, which is here on the X scale. And you can have bio-based origin or not. Fossil-based is on this scale, and bio-based origin, renewable origin is on the Y scale in the top. So now you can have 4 different types of materials. First, you have synthetic polymers, polyester, PVC, PU. Yeah, they are on one hand based on a fossil raw material source, and they are not biodegradable. It's a no-go for the future. Yeah, therefore I put it in red. Then we have materials. The BASF is working very hard on this. Yeah, these are materials which are bio-based, yes, but which do not which are biodegradable, so I have to say, yeah, but which are still based on fossil source, yeah, caprolactam, and so there are certain polymers which can biodegrade, which is good if they end up in the nature. They will not end up in the stomach of a whale, but they are still based on oil, and if you burn them, they are giving additional CO2 to the atmosphere. Yeah, so now I'm back. And then is the third group. They are based on renewable raw materials, which is good, but they get chemically modified. And if they go in the nature, they are not biodegrading anymore because they are chemically modified. Also not good. And the nicest material and the future material from sustainability point of view, yeah, these are bio-based polymers which even can biodegrade. And this is our collagen, our leather, also cotton, yeah. And most of the chemicals we are using, like veg tans, as I mentioned before, they are also bio-based, yeah. So we have a bio-based material which is even degrading in the nature and going back to the same amount of CO2 as it was generated from the beginning. And this is a huge advantage of real leather, yeah, compared to synthetics. Of course, in finishing and in retaining syntans, for example, we are also using chemicals which are deriving from a fossil source. That's why we are not 100% bio-based, but at least we are 80, 90, maybe 70. It depends on the recipe. We are bio-based. Yeah, for shuapa leather, where you use a casein wax, yeah, we will be maybe even above 90%. So this is a big advantage and the big difference between leather and artificial materials. Yeah, if you sum up then this chart, what I did, even in biodegradability, we can give for leather a green dot, but for synthetics, this definitely would be a red dot. Yeah, then I'm coming already to my end. Yeah, these were the most important 6 parameters of from a sustainability point of view: raw material origin, chemicals, water, byproducts, carbon footprint, biodegradability. We have for everything a solution. Yeah, the best available technology, which is available to every tanner in the world. Yeah. Can make sure that leather can be is proven to be safe in use. It's harmless for environment and human health, and of course, leather has these huge advantages that it is sourced from a safe and audited production process, and it is a renewable raw material. And safe and audited process we have also in manufacturing. If everyone knows, I guess, the leather working group, which audits tannery process from an environmental point of view. And we have these ZDHC NGO, which takes chemicals side of use and make sure that the chemicals are okay. Yeah, and then we have this huge advantage that leather is also a renewable and biodegradable material. So for me, if all this is in place, yeah, if we have a state-of-the-art production in the leather industry and a good sourcing in the tannery, for me, the use of leather is the ultimate sustainable choice of material. And this is a message we have to bring out we all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Tegmaer, for a very detailed discussions and updated information. We'll come back to you during the question and answer session. Second expert in our panel today is Mr. N. Shafiq Ahmed. Mr. N. Shafiq Ahmed is the partner and MD of the Shafiq Shamil and Company, a 50+ years group. He is a leather and footwear technologist from ILTA HR Chennai with professional training abroad in Europe and USA. Mr. Shafiq has industry experience for more than 30 years and served as COA member of the CLE for more than 10 years. He has been president, South India Shoe Manufacturers Association, and chairman, ISO TC 120 Leather Committee. Mr. Shafiq Ahmed was also former chairman, IFLIMIA, president, ISF, and vice chairman, CLE. Eco-sustainability of leather industry in long term is a special interest of Mr. Shafiq. We will also be deliberating on the topic leather vis-a-vis imitations in the Indian perspective. Mr. Shafiq Ahmed, please.
Yeah. Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for having me today and giving this opportunity to interact with the learned people here, Dr. Edmeyer and Dr. Sriram. They are the industry experts. The domain experts. I am coming from the industry. I would like to add the industry perspective, where we stand, how we compare to the industries in Europe who have gone forward, like what Mr. Tegmaer has said. It's no doubt he has explained very clearly vis-a-vis the leather advantage of leather, the circular economy, that leather can come out with the circular economy because it's recycles, it's reuses, and in the end, it is a biodegradable product. That's coming to a very good conclusion, and very soon in Europe, they would probably catch up with this situation, and the awareness for leather is being generated there and is spread over to the public and in general. Even under the UN program, the UN leather has joined to save the eco sustainability, one of the initiatives. And I think the top brands in Europe, the topmost brands, have joined together in hands, and they are coming out with the leather as a sustainable fashion product, which is all happening good here. I was asked to say the Indian perspective of this, so it's very difficult to put where we stand in this situation now. And from my side, I would say that we are still in India, we are largely in a catch-up position to this status, what Mr. Tegmaer has said and what's happening in Europe. And though leather as such stands a very good product of circular processing, circular economy, we still have a large awareness gap. We have a lot of ignorance and misinformation about leather, which has to be corrected for the goodness of leather what we have now. So we got a wrong fact sheet here. I have discussed this many times with Dr. Sriram. The fact sheet in India has to be corrected by way of awareness program and by use of various other means. I have even discussed about how we could be doing the right branding for leather in India, and we should come out with something like a legislative points also, like Europe has, like Italy has done recently, where they have come out with a legislative degree on a law to misuse of leather term. The term leather could not be used with any other products except animal origin. And we should also look at the possibility of bringing the sort of EU directive for using the right information on the leather products, which is the symbols and the information on the products, which has the EU directives there to cover that, apart from the misuse of leather, which is being restricted in Italy now. So the Indian perspective, I would say the tanning industry in India is in the middle of this total misinformation in the retail, I would say in the retail industry. One, in the export sector, we face the excessive use of synthetics, non-leathers, imitations, but which is under check, like Dr. Ted Mayer has said, which is under check. We expect that to very soon take over for the right information. As far as the Indian market is concerned, I have just mentioned we need to put in places where is whatever is required to bring this awareness or under the control of law and everything. There's no doubt that leather in India has been a very, very old product, probably much, much historically older than any of the world markets. And we had always had leather connected to the rural economy, the rural artisan. Then it moved on to the small scale industries. Then once the industrialization took over, we have seen how the non-leather and the imitations have taken over the market. First, it was for the price points that the synthetics were introduced for certain price points, but now it has taken over all the price points. And leather as an industry, leather is in some way, in many of the places, it is marginalized as a very marginal products in the retail market that suffers. This has been a shortcoming in the leather industry. Leather industry feels that synthetic should stand on its own with the right marking, with the right product information, and leather, for all its goodness and differentiation, should stand for proper symbolic marking and everything, so that it is as a luxury product, as a traditional product which India has always cherished, leather, right, historically. It should go, and it should be recognized in that part. I do not see the socio-cultural aspects in India, because India is a very diverse society, and there's a lot of contradictions, and the amount of leather non-users are very, very small in when it comes to products, and traditionally which we are not worried about, and we have to look for how to spread the right usage of leather in the Indian usage, especially in the retail and also in the export sector. That's probably my standpoint from the industry standpoint. And I think sustainability and the circular economy, circular product is well explained by Dr. Ted Mayer. And I would like to conclude in today's meeting, this interaction, that what action plan we need to have in the Indian leather sector. How are we going to protect the Indian tanneries? Because we know there's a large number of Indian tanneries are there. I have been working on the data of how much tanneries are filled up now, how many tanneries are going empty with no leather businesses. And this has been one of my aspects in highlighting to the Council for Leather Exports and all that. And so we have to find out how much of this terminology point and the identification of leather and non-leather products, how much that could help the industry to revive ourselves because India is a growing economy, and it's a growing purchasing power economy. And this is the right time that we introduce leather awareness to the youngsters, especially who are not aware of leather, who are misinformed correctly. Currently, they are misinformed like anywhere else. And the right information about the sustainability of the leather has to be introduced into Indian market. We have just initiated a work on this with CLRA. CLRA has come forward and taken a responsibility to how to bring this about in the near future. And from the Indian perspective, this is what I would say the immediate task will be. But the sustainability points, what Mr. Ted Mayer has said, is very much applies to all the Indian tanning sector to bring a circular processing. He has said the entire sustainability processing, which can be a circular economy. I think the Indian tanning sector should immediately work on those lines together with partnering with CLRA. And this could be my observation currently from my standpoint. I would like to hand it over to the moderator right now. I'm open to any questions after this from the standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shafiq Ahmed.
Yes.
And we will also request you to be present for our question and answer sessions.
Sure. Yes.
And,
yes.
And taking your discussions forward on the legislation part, I would invite Dr. K.J. Sriram, who is a fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry UK and Society of Leather Technologists and Chemists UK. Is the director of the CSIR CLRI Institute since December 2019. Prior to this, he was the head of the testing facilities of the institute, where his contributions towards development of test methods for leather and allied products and achieving the ISO 17025-2017 standards were highly acclaimed. Dr. Sriram is the recipient of CSIR Young Scientist Award in 2004 for his contributions to green chemistry of chromium. Dr. Sriram has developed a range of functionalized metal and metal oxide nanoparticles with potential applications in cross-linking of proteins, a work which led is being recognized by the International Union of Leather Technologies and Chemist Societies with the International Union of Research Award. Dr. Sriram has an impressive publication record with 96 papers in national and international journals, 1666 citations and H index of 21. He also has 19 patents filed to his credit with several technology transfer consultancy activities. Dr. Sriram has also been involved in science communication, especially in the area of sustainable manufacturing. In his role as the director of CSIR CLRI, he is also the chairman of the CST 17 of the Bureau of Indian Standards and the member of the Council of Administration Satra Coimbatore and the governing council of FDDDI. Dr. Sriram, request you to please give your presentation.
Good evening to all of you, and thanks very much to ILTA, Dr. Techmer, Mr. Shafiq Ahmed, and all those who share the same thought process when it comes to leather. I was to talk about certification of leather and the present scenario in the legislation side. When I started looking for what do you mean by this term called certification and what can we talk about here, I came and started looking at what is there in the rest of the areas of the industry, worldwide. And I happened to look at the first thing which I wanted to look at, what is a fiber? So when we went and looked at what is a fiber, and I come back and found that there are several terminologies that people are misusing or using and all that stuff. And finally, but not the least, the fiber is a morphological term characterized for its flexibility, fineness, high ratio of length to length through the cross-sectional area and those kind of things. So now, having said this, I was just looking at the next thing, what should we be calling as a fiber? Now, there can be two types of fibers, the man-made fibers and the natural fibers. Again, here the man-made ones are divided into organic and inorganics. The organics can further be divided as those which are naturally polymer transformed, synthetic polymer transformed, and so on and so forth. But in the whole concept of thing, the natural fiber is very, very limited. So therefore, we have to go back and keep this terminology in mind. And then comes what Mr. Shafiq Ahmed was pointing out about the terminology of the term called leather. In 2019, the International Standards Organization, the ISO, put up the terminologies for leather, and they came back and said, hide or skin with its original fibrous structure, more or less intact, tend to be imputrescible, where the hair or wool may or may not have been removed, whether or not the hide or skin is split into layers or segmented either before or after tanning, and most importantly, the surface layer or coating, the finishing coating or whatever, is not thicker than 0.15 mm. This is what the ISO has finally finalized for the term called leather. Now, they also give two notings there. It said that if the tan, hide or skin is mechanically or chemically disintegrated, it should not be called as leather. So even the terminology called leather board is not right. If the grain leather has been completely removed, the term leather is to be used with an additional qualification. For instance, it should be called the split leather. So this is where the international standards itself stands. Now, unfortunately, or whatever, these are only voluntary terminologies, and we may have to look at what do we want to do in this. So you go back and look at what every country has done, and the International Leather Council comes back and says that EU has a labeling mechanism for footwear, where 80% of the material that it constitutes has to be indicated as to what that material is all about. It also wants to say that, now they are making it more clear, if it contains non-textile parts of animal origin, it has to be very clearly mentioned. Italy, as was being mentioned just now, has also made it very clear as to who can use the terms leather, hide, fur, pele, and all those kind of things. Spain, as early as 1984, has banned the use of the leather term by products that have lost the natural structure itself. Now, who have been giving the leather mark? UK has been doing it. Italy has been doing it. China has doing it. Brazil is in the process of initiating it. USA is in the process of initiating it. Japan has just started it. South Africa is doing it. And of course, Spain is doing it. And there are several other countries in the European Union who have aligned with Italy, and through the UNIC are giving the leather mark. Now, this is where Mr. Arnab Jha was talking about a leather mark like the hallmark for India. And this is what I was told to speak about also. Now, before I do that, I go back to what Dr. Tekmair left about. And this is one aspect which we will have to be very careful. On one side could be the legislations, one side could be the ISOs, one side could be the leather mark we give and all that stuff. But we also have to go back and look at from the back of our mind, why is it that people are going towards the synthetics? A, are the synthetics making the people feel that leather is not good while synthetics are? This is one area of thought. Second possibility is that the synthetics are being sold at a cheaper price than the leather without certain concerns or advantages that the leather would give compared to the synthetics. So when I went to the UNIC website, the Italian website, and I found a very clear statement there. Real leather is real sustainability. And they went back and said that UNIC is aiming at end consumers and focused on the main characteristics: naturalness, circularity, durability, and creativity. And they go back and in all their advertisements, in all their features, come back and say that, look, it is that naturalness and the circularity and durability which makes leather different from all the rest of the materials. I was so excited by what I saw in the Italian forum. You know, they keep on coming back and telling the people how leather is much, much better than anybody else. And they keep on stressing the point that leather is a byproduct of the food industry. And you go back and look at the kind of brochures that they have released. They keep on saying Italian leather is a guarantee of the highest levels of transparency and our commitment. They also go back and say it's a formidable model of a compliance with the highest safety standards that protect even the end consumer. Now, Indian leather has to have its own trademark, not just by giving a hallmark of it, but also on the aspects of sustainability. When we go back and really look at it, you would find in the literature itself that one of the countries who started using enzymes in the place of lime and sulfide for leather processing was India. One of the countries, or possibly currently a very few number of countries, who in the almost like 30 years back started looking at sodium chloride, NaCl, the total dissolved solids, and made sure that we are compliant to the TDS norms, which were very unique to certain states of this country, is also being addressed, is India. Now, these are the things which have not got highlighted sufficiently enough in the whole process by which this industry handles leather. I was kind of little bit perplexed when yesterday I saw a brochure which has come out in the forum, and it says that synthetic footwear is a green industry. Today's presentation of Dr. Tekmer very clearly tells us how the synthetics is not a green industry. I was trying to go back and find out from where did they pick up this whole stuff. And I found that in one of our norms, we have said that leather is in the red category, while leather footwear is in the green category. And they picked up from there and went on to say non-leather footwear is also a green category industry because we don't use water. Now, this is where what Dr. Tekman just said about the water consumption is being unnecessarily highlighted in a different fashion, and possibly many of us in our research publications, etc., have also been highlighting that the water consumption of the leather industry is much worse than paper industry, that industry, etc., while we are not actually so. And it also is, in one way, we should highlight here that IULTCS also was at one point of time stressing that people should not say in their publications or terminologies, chromium is toxic. This is where exactly where we have to start focusing on the industry, whichever industry is doing very well on the sustainability point of view should stand together and focus very well. I give you an example once again from the Italian standpoint itself. The UNI EN 16484 talks about requirements for the determination of the origin of leather production. They come back and say that you have to define a leather as Italian. Now, not just the definition or leather mark, it even says Italian leather. And they say that if you are tanning, substantial tanning has to happen in Italy. If it is a crust, substantial transformation, that is retanning, fat liquor, dyeing, has to happen in Italy. In the case of finished leather, origin of the finished leather shall be the country where retanning was done. And if finishing happens in a different country, that is, it should be marked as Italian leather finished in France or French leather finished in Italy. So they are now even started going to the next level of not just tagging the leather, but also saying that this is Italian leather. Now, go back and look at it. They also have the logos for that. The tanneries can have for leather made in Italy or for leather full cycle, which means the entire process, entire thing is done in Italy itself. Now, when we have a growing leather market, growing domestic market in the country, at the present moment, we are almost like 50-50 domestic versus international market. We must start focusing on these things and make sure that we are in a position to claim the better part of leather. What has CLRA done till now on the leather mark or the is what we need to look at. What we thought was that let us have an iterative technique. We thought that we will have as much as possible a non-destructive methodology so that even a consumer based outlet, the guy or the guy who's selling the material can showcase through a very small equipment worth a few lakhs whether the material given is leather or non-leather. And we tried catching upon the protein, which is very, very unique to us, the collagen. And we knew that the collagen has specific amide bonds, which can be easily picked up on the FTIR. We went and picked up about 1,000 samples from various fairs and so on, which have been marked as leather, as various names of synthetic leather, that etc., etc., and people who were selling synthetics as leather. And we found that except in a few cases wherein the leather or the leather has been used, leather has been repurposed, the collagen has been taken out and mixed with this polymers and created a board kind of material, the FTIR technique could be used as a screening technique for identification of leather. Today, you get handheld FTIRs for as less as 3 to 4 lakhs or 5 lakhs in this country. Then comes the next level, in case you have a doubt to go into the microscopic techniques, or even we found that when somebody does a thermogravimetric analysis, burn the material and check, which we used to do as a preliminary technique, we found that even the pattern by which the leather would degrade, Dr. Techmeyer was talking about the biodegradability, is totally different from the synthetics point of view. Finally, but not the least, the hydroxyproline content itself. How much of hydroxyproline is there is very unique to the leather. If it is not mixed with anything else, you know that there is a definite value of hydroxyproline depending upon the kind of animal with which the leather has been made. So this is something which we were talking about as a way to go for to do the leather mark. But the question comes, how do we do this in the industry level? So you go back and look at how the gold marking is done. They look at homogeneity, purity, and marking individual items. This is where our challenge starts. Gold, you can go, the entire ornaments or thing in a jewelry shop can be marked individually. How do you do this when it comes to leather? Especially in India, we have to see how does a testing agency or anybody is in a position to mark the entire lot or however it is done. So these are some challenges which we may have to work out, after which India can have its own leather marking. To conclude, what could be the next steps? I would put the consumer awareness of what is leather in the top. The next thing would be that we need to be transparent and showcase ourselves the eco character of the leather. Then we may have to see that once we have the eco character, how do we convince our governmental systems to move us out of the red category and get ourselves into the green category? Then you do everything, but still some synthetics are there whose costs are so low. We must have to look at, can leather still meet the materials on cost? When I say about cost, I need to also highlight to you one article which I read about 3-4 months back. One of the European countries about a decade back had replaced leather upholstery with synthetics in their trains. Last year, they realized that it was a mistake because the synthetic one, they had to change it in a matter of 5 years itself, while the leather upholstery stayed there for more than 25 years. So they have taken a call now to go back to leather upholstery as against the synthetics. This is something which we may all like to talk about when we talk about cost. Cost at what sense? Not just the right cost what you're buying, but also in terms of how much more time you can bear it, the durability associated cost, and so on and so forth. Finally, but not the least, we have to establish scientifically that leather is more durable and more circular than synthetics. This is a challenge which the Indian leather industry will have to take it forward. And we need to really come back and do everything that was marked in Dr. Tekmay's presentation. We cannot throw away our solid waste. We need to make that byproduct utilization. We need to implement the best practices in water management. Otherwise, our carbon dioxide values that was being presented today would be totally on the wrong side. Therefore, I would actually stop by urging the industry that while we would take up the legislative road or whichever as the industry would like to in saying what should be called the leather and what should not be called the leather, we also have to take upon our responsibility to showcase the leather in the right manner. If not, like some countries that I presented, as early as 84, they had the norms there in place, but it may not just apply or work at all. So these two things have to go hand in hand and thus work for us. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Dr. Sriram, for updating us on what needs to be done and how we go about it. Just a point to be noted that in ILTA, this is we are not going. It is as this webinar is not a one-off activity. We want to take this mission forward or this message forward, and if anyone wants to partner with us or we want to want us as the partner, we will be associating with them. So it is. Now I would request Dr. Buddhadev Chattopadhyay, Principal of MCKV Institute of Engineering and former Principal of Government College of Engineering and Leather Technology, to take over the session as the moderator and handle the question and answer session. Dr. Chattopadhyay, please.
Well, thank you, Shubir. To sum up, we have the three speakers, Dr. Dietrich Tegmeyer, who has spoken on leather vis-a-vis non-leather, and say leather sustainability, is it a constant contradiction or not? Now to start with, we came to know that it's a collagen, which is the basic material, raw material of leather, is a climate neutral material. And the cattle, in fact, our cattle or any animal produces the skins, hides and skins, that is used in leather. Cattle in turns take the grass, and the grass consumes the carbon dioxide and water, and to photosynthesize to carbohydrate. And this is being used by the cow to ultimately synthesize the protein. So if you take the carbon balance of the cattle and the slaughterhouse and the farming vis-a-vis the leather production as a whole, then it comes out that carbon consumption and carbon release is almost same. That is the carbon dioxide balance or carbon dioxide footprint, carbon footprint, we are not so bad. Now, there has been an emphasis on chemicals also. He has emphasized on chemicals also, but now the chemical industry has has made a paradigm shift, and they make the chemicals as neutral as possible, as harmless as possible. That is replacing synthetic materials with the natural materials like enzymes, proteins, waxes, etc. In that case, he has also mentioned about ZDHC whitelist rubrics. Sourcing the right product is a most one important point, and we are highlighting ourselves in digging our own grave in saying in most of the cases that the leathers are highly water consuming, but the leather is not at that moment is highly water consuming. if you look at the other side, the total matrix of different production, leather will not be as bad as it is image as we image it. Now, regarding the raw material consumption, perhaps tanning industry is the only industry where the utilization of only 30 to 40% of raw material makes it to survive so far. And really 60 to 70% of the raw material are wasted in many different forms like fleshing, shaving, and trimming, etc., etc. But there are scopes for protein upcycling, and there are scopes using cell biology to develop something like like injectable protein collagen, or like other value-added collagens of different use. In that case, it reminds me that if you go to Europe, you will not find a shampoo, you will not find a soap which doesn't have a collagen as a material. Now, this thing has to be looked into. He has also described that the carbon footprint is going to be next key performance indicator, KPI, and he has explained the cradle to grave approach, and the study made by the colleagues in Europe, and where we can see that the 100% of cow, cow weight is producing almost 80% of milk, and 12% of goes to body weight. Out of the 12% body weight, 96.5% is used as meat, and only 3% of hide, that is carbon equivalent is almost 0.42% of cow. And therefore, if there is 70% of byproduct is allocated for upcycling. He has also distinguished between bio-based origin and biodegradable material, and the four different principally different segment in it, different four quadrants, I would say, in it. One is the bio-based polymers like collagen, cotton, vegetable tan, rattan, and etc., and lecithin oils, etc., which are bio-based polymers and also biodegradable. Bio-based plastics like CA, ECO, PUD, or PE, non-biodegradable like polyethylene, PVC, and PU, biodegradable plastics like PCT, PBAT, and PBS. And he said time and again he has re-emphasized what is my favorite quote, that tanners were painted by a thicker brush than they deserve. Coming to the second speaker, Mr. Safiq Ahmed, who is a very experienced person in the tanning industry and respected man. He has highlighted in the context of India how to differentiate between leather and imitation is a big challenge. And the thumb rule there can be one of the more major important factor can be to stay on or to emphasize on the eco sustainability. And in the Europe or in Western countries, most of the top brands has joined hand together in bringing in the awareness and to catch up the position by product circular processing and also circular economy. Now, a lack of notion and awareness is as identified as one of the factors in the context of India. So he has asked for preparing a fact sheet, and this fact sheet has to be widely publicized not only by a research institute or industry, but by everybody associated with the leather. Branding of leather in India is a big challenge, and if that can be done, and in that case, we will also need a legislature decree that the leather can not be used for a material which is made from non-animal origin, and this misuse of leather has been restricted in Europe. So the awareness of the law is the need of the hour, but we have an advantage of we are historically important leather segment, and from the price point of view, Indian leather industry is gradually being marginalized by the aggressive invasion of the the imitations. It has a symbolic marking, and that can only be confronted if we can fight together to bring the awareness among the consumer and to bring the awareness about the wrong notion or the wrong information that is floating in the floating in the mind of the people. That is the image of the people. How to clean our image instead of cleaning the tannery. The cleaning the image is also very important, as he said. The right of use of leather, whether for retail or export, that has to be differentiated. And how are you going to make, what are going to be the action plan, and how are you going to protect the tanneries, which are some of which are sometimes doing bad. We are growing economy, and we have a growing purchasing economy, therefore, and misinformation, a misinformed or wrong notion or wrong image or bad image is going to be overcome only if we can highlight the sustainability of the leather to the people, sustainability as well as durability and health consciousness. Dr. KJ Siram, thereafter the third speaker, also is the director of the CLRI at present. He has clarified how the certification of the leather and in the present context and what is there in the rest of the industry, and how do we define fiber? Is a morphological character, fineness, length, length is to cross-sectional area. This can be man-made, natural, but natural resources are limited. He has also emphatically mentioned that as per ISO I15115 to the 2019, it has clearly mentioned that hides and skins with its original fiber structure has to be there more or less in the product if that has to be qualify as a leather. The surface coating or the surface layer should not be should be less than 0.15 micrometer. EU 80% in European Union, 80% of the surface area are upper. That must be leather, and the leather mark has been already established by the government approved agencies of UK, Italy, China, Brazil, USA, Japan, and Spain, and many other countries. India has to catch up. And what is the concern of all of us is to aim simultaneously at the end user. Is it the fact that they believe that the synthetic is better than the better substance than the leather? Is it a fact that they are going for synthetic because of its price advantage, because it is cheaper? That needs a kind of a market survey and a survey of the consumer behavior. The real leather is a real sustainable leather. It's really sustainable, and we are in the era of circular economy. India, on its own right and merit, probably is the first country which used the uh, enzyme in leather production. We know it very well. Putrid soak and these things are long used. We have the first country to recognize that sodium chloride probably is the buzzword for TDS in India, and the main problem is that the leather, the synthetic material marketing also emphasizes that synthetic footwear is green, is belongs to the green category, and this concept has came from the notion that while leather is in the red category, synthetic is given in a green category in India. And one of the reasons for this is the H2 consumption, which is basically what we picture, what we figure out is basically a over weighted, is basically biased and exaggerated figures. This is actually not true. He has also emphatically mentioned that we have to understand basically, and we have to spread this news basically, that chrome is non-toxic. Yes, it is so because of the fact that we need chrome 3 daily dietary intake for our lipid and glucose metabolism at the rate of 1 milligram of chrome 3 per kg of the body weight, and that can come only from the dietary intake. Otherwise, glucose and lipid metabolism are going to be affected. The chrome is much needed. It's a needed material, trace material, though, but it is needed material. It is not that it is toxic, it is poison. And he also urged that for the tanning of the leather sector, I also feel so. I am at one with Dr. Sriram that we must consider ourselves, all the segment of the leather industry must consider ourselves in a big melting pot, and we must make a comprehensive plan, sustainable plan, not in a fragmented way, but in a overall holistic way. We must see into it and see how we can be sustainable. That's the main point which came up to my mind to make a moderation. I will now open this for questions. There were three hands were raised during the question, and I will first take up the hand raised persons, and I will ask Mr. Pulak Mojumdar to kindly unmute yourself and start your video. First, you tell us, introduce you, and also then you tell us your question is aimed to whom. The first speaker, Take Mayor, or Mr. Safiq Ahmed, or Mr. Sriram, Dr. Sriram. Pulak Majumdar, please unmute yourself. Pulak.
Are you listening?
Yeah, we are listening.
Yes, yes, yes.
This my question to Mr. Sriram. This process of making hallmark, how long it will take? Because the way he's explaining, BIS mark, lot of things are there, leather. That's my question. How long it will take to have a leather mark? What is the time period we are thinking?
The Bureau of Indian Standards generally takes anywhere from 6 months to 12 months to recognize this and allow it as a marking. So that's a time period that we are talking about.
Thank you.
Then I will invite Mr. Alokesh Ray, who has raised the hand. Alokesh Ray, please unmute yourself and ask the questions. First, you tell to whom you want to ask, the first speaker, second speaker, or the third speaker. Please unmute yourself and ask the question.
Yes, are you able to listen to me?
Yes, yes.
My question to Mr. Shriram, it was a very good suggestion. I feel what you also repeat the same thing, and I think everybody will be agreed. The public awareness that leather is cheaper in the sense because of the sustainability, and leather is not detrimental to health, or many other socio-religious, economical aspects are there for which leather people sometimes avoid leather. So what should be the ways or means? Simply seminar or in the paper, it will not solve the problem. So what should be the ways and means to upgrade the social thought or to influence the social thinking that leather is good for people and good for health and good to use in every sense? Thank you.
You need the best of the scientific campaigners for this. That's a simple answer that I can say. All the organizations, all the people associated with leather have to stand together, make sure that we are in a positive outlook and we don't cut things down to create a negative image for ourselves. You must understand at this point that when we go into a campaign mode, even one person wrong among 100 can spoil the whole thing. So we need to stand out and make sure that the industry, as was mentioned, the LWG, etc., is showcasing us in the best of the format, and this should be shown out as across all the brochures, across everything that we come out with. That is the only way forward.
Okay. Now I am asking Mr.
Doctor,
Tarak.
hello, I'm Shafiq here. I have one suggestion to add to Dr. Sriram.
Yes. Yes.
Can you take it? Can you take it from me, please? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. Dr. Sriram, when you said the hallmark should also be a question of spreading the goodness of leather, because there is a marking today for coffee, for organic cotton, for fair trade practices. Everything is labeled today for anything, for right from cotton to any fair trade practices or all that. So the hallmark that we are, the leather mark that we are talking about should also include the processing of the leather, the eco-sustainability of the leather, the circular economy. This should be also highlighted along with the leather mark, sir. That's what we should think about. A holistic awareness of leather. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Tarak Shah is the person who has raised the hand. Tarak Shah, could you ask the question? First, you tell us to whom you want to ask the question, and then ask the question. Tarak Shah. Tarak Shah, can you unmute yourself? Okay. We don't have any other raising hands. I will go to the chats and I will take up only if there is some questions. If there is certain things which are remarks or opinion, I am not taking up that one. So, for example, good evening. It was a good experience, highly informative. Thanks for participation from USA. Very informative. We need worldwide awareness, etc. Very true, sir. Thank Mr. Dr. Tegmeyer for the excellent presentation. I feel it is to start and continue in India and Bangladesh together. We need public awareness. Yes, there is no question at all. It are all opinion that has been expressed in a form of a chat, and therefore, from my side, I have no duty or assignment left. Over to
Buddhadev,
Subir.
Dr. Buddhadev,
Yes,
Dr. Tekmer,
yes.
Dr. Tekmer, how do we go about this entire carbon footprinting as a procedure so that everybody follows the same methodology for evaluating it? Today, you have several, the biodegradability itself, people look at it, several people gave several methods. In the same way, when we go back to the literature, the carbon footprint assessment also is being done by people in different formats. How do we normalize this first?
That's a good question. I mean, actually, in the automotive companies here in Germany, at least BMW, Mercedes-Benz, I know they are taking this KPI very serious right now. Actually, the purchasing managers, their bonus system is linked to the amount of carbon footprint what they purchase. And they are asked to minimize this. And even here we have these discussions that these KPIs at Mercedes-Benz and BMW are not calculated in that way, And actually every brand and every OEM can define what for his purpose is the right KPI. There is no no rule. Therefore, it is very very difficult that and be careful. You have to be very careful that you are not comparing apples with oranges. So this European approach, what I have shown, this is something you can recommend. Yeah, and hopefully you can convince your customer that he is using this, or you as an institute. There is a reference. In my presentation, there is an official. This is an official publication from the European Commission. Yeah. We also want to make a CEN norm out of it, but it isn't so far. But this is an official publication of a study, and it's a product environmental footprint category rules, PEFCR, in EU. And then you can download this from the Cotons. This is a European Leather Association. So I only can recommend to use this, but there is nothing else what we can do. ISO actually says we have to minimize the carbon footprint contribution out of processes coming from the forend, yeah, like the farming industry in our case, you know. But there are no clear numbers and no clear guidelines what ISO 14,000 and something is giving, you know. So this is an official study from the EU, which you can take as a reference. I also would take it as a scientific reference, yeah. You can also have a look at it. These are, as I said, you can download this. I can also send you the link if you want. These are 150 or 60 pages, yeah, very, very long and very, very detailed. But the essence is actually that chart what I have shown today. Yeah? So again, yeah, there are no clear rules and laws. You know, these are just recommendations. And to me, as I said, the story is still not finished. You know, the problem is not only with leather. As I said, it's with all raw material, all materials where the raw material comes from a natural origin, soya or palm oil or whatever, you know. You do not know where to set the boundaries, you know. Yeah, it could be endless. Yeah, and for a natural raw material, these standard calculations of category rules are a disadvantage. And it can't be true that a sustainable raw material gets a disadvantage in this new economy. Therefore, I believe the arguments are on our side. Yeah, we have to push and we have to push and we have to push and we have to speak with one voice. Yeah, and yes, this European study is a good reference. Yeah, but I can't tell you what is this, if there is a normalized standard in 2 or 3 years, yeah, that everyone is taking the same. I can't tell you.
Dr. Sriram, will you please permit me to share my experience on the carbon footprint experiment that has been done in Calcutta Leather Complex?
Please go ahead.
So, sir, we used two instruments, that is total organic carbon and CHN analyzer. And we have taken all kind of carbon inputs into the leather with the raw material carbon content, total carbon content, and then the inputs coming in the form of various chemicals, from starting from the beam house to finishing all the chemicals. We have taken it, and also we have taken down the carbon content in the sludge, in the waste water, as well as the solids, the biodegradable solids, that 70% of the these solids which are wasted, for three different kind of tanneries who are producing number one club leather, number two upper leather, and number three bag leather in Calcutta Leather Complex. And to my utter surprise, we found that as Dr. Tegmar has said, that in leather processing also, if we do not take the farmhouse carbon footprint into consideration, in leather processing also, the total carbon input balances with the total carbon output, and carbon is directly equivalently correlated with carbon dioxide, and that's my idea that came in mind, and this was published in JSLTC. Now, if have nothing, I would hand over to Subir.
Yeah, so we have some internet problems, so I should start now. Thank you, Dr. Buddhadev Chatterjee. To give vote of thanks, Honorable Speaker, present today, President of our Association, Honorable Moderator, Coordinator, Seminar Committee, our members, and participation from India and abroad. Seminar Committee of ILTA organized this seminar to address some of the most burning issues of leather industry and society as a whole. It is most successfully organized, and the credit goes to the seminar committee. This is just a beginning. We will continue this issue to knock the appropriate authority and to enhance the awareness of the common people towards ecological impact of imitations of leather. Today, all the three deliberations were extremely useful, informative, and aimed at fulfilling our objectives. So what we understood, legislation for hallmarking and awareness of the people are the two most important issues we should address on top priority. We will work on these two issues in near future. We are grateful to the honorable speakers, Dr. Tegmayer, Mr. Shofiq Ahmed, Dr. Sriram, for with success. We are also grateful to the honorable moderator of today's seminar, Dr. Buddhadev Chattopadhyay, for his kind consent to conduct the panel discussion, moderation, and question and answer session. Just to inform you, under human resource development activities, we have three committees: HR, seminar, and welfare, headed by Mr. Ratan Chaudhary, Shubir Datto, and Kaushik Bhuiya. Those are working very hard and prepared a roadmap of the series of events which includes seminars, workshops, training, medical camps, etc. in coming days on digital platform. We need your wholehearted support in all our future activities. Lastly, we express our sincere thanks to all participants from India and abroad for showing your keen interest and giving us the motivation to go ahead with such activities. Thank you very much.